Welcome to you, Chappell.
G'day, Jared. How are you, mate?
I'm going pretty well. Where do you see all this at this stage? It's been a pretty tough 12 months for Australian cricket, and for David Warner in particular, a tough month, in fact.
Yeah, it hasn't been one of his better months, either on or off the field. I pretty well found that the more you try and control players, the less control you actually have. And, you know, we were told after the 4 guys were suspended in India that everything had been sorted out and everything was going to go ahead nicely from there. Well, you know, and I'm not for a moment condoning if Warner has thrown a punch, that's stupid. And you know, I've been in a lot of bars with a lot of cricketers. There's been plenty of animated discussion, probably quite a few heated arguments. But cricketers in general don't start throwing punches, and it's a pretty silly thing to do if that's what he's done. And you know, he'll get into a bit of strife. But all this talk of sending him home, you know, I'd just like to remind those people who are talking about that Ricky Ponting got punched by a bouncer in Sydney many years ago, and Ricky went on to be captain of Australia and a damn fine captain and a bloody good batsman. So, you know, I think people are getting a bit carried away talking about sending him home.
Was Ricky given any tough love after that? Because this is on the back of an incident where he basically apologised and probably overreacted to a couple of pictures in the paper.
Yeah, he certainly overreacted to. Although I felt a bit of sympathy for him. I thought that was bad etiquette. You know, a story on fixing, and you put that guy's photo there. That's I'd take exception to that. Now, I wasn't around. I wasn't playing at a time when you had mobile phones, maybe just as well. But that's something you sort out with the guy. You let him know what you think of him, probably give him both barrels, and then say, righto, mate, what are you having to drink? The journo I'm talking about. So, I had a bit of sympathy for David, but he did certainly overreact there. But if you're going to start throwing your fists around, that's pretty silly.
And within the team environment, who would likely be the 1 or 2 people that would sort of sit down with him and try and say, well, listen, you're going down the wrong path, etc., etc. Like in the Australian cricket setup, who would do that?
Well, you know, Lee, the old setup used to be, and you didn't get too many dickheads actually reaching the Australian team, because at Sheffield Shield level, if you were a young bloke and you came in and you started making a clown of yourself, someone usually got hold of you and banged you up against the wall and said, listen, mate, that's not how we do things around here. Now, this is how we do things. Now, you either do them that way or you could find yourself out of here in a big hurry. And so a lot of the stuff you got knocked out of you at that level. And it was the senior players. I mean, it's a different sort of an example, but I remember my first Shield tour was to Melbourne, and there was a party going on in the motel we were staying in, and I had a tray full of drinks. And I was carting them over to the group that I was in, and one of the senior players grabbed me and he said, which is your drink here, son? And I said, it's the beer. And he said, that's what I want to see you drinking all the time, nothing other than beer. And at 11 o'clock, I got the tap on the shoulder, son, you finish that beer and then it's time for you to go to bed. So, you know, that was the sort of education you got as a young bloke. And as I say, if you started being a bit of a smart aleck, you got a very swift kick in the pants.
So why doesn't that happen now?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I give you an example from a more modern era. I said to Andrew Simons a couple of years ago after he'd retired, when we were commentating, I said, mate, what happened? You know, why did you just sort of give it away? And he said, there was no fun anymore. He said, I like to go down to the bar and have a quiet drink and a bit of a chat after the game with my mates. And he said they were playing Xbox. Now, I don't even know what the hell Xbox is, but he said they were playing against each other. He said, but they weren't even playing in the same room. He said, you'd see the the wires coming out of one room into another. He said they're playing against each other, but they're sitting in their own room. Well, I mean, all I can say is I'm bloody glad I played when I did.
As always, Ian, we do appreciate your time. I'd like to have a little bit more time with you, but we do have to move on, and we look with interest, and we'll discuss, no doubt, the penalty when it's handed down later on tonight. Thanks for your time.
Okay, pleasure, guys.